Good morning, St. Peter's. Good morning, St. Peter's. All right, very good. I'm so glad to be here. And you know, we have some of the best leaders in the world, right? All right. So I'm not going to be before you long. I just want to do a bio on the guest speaker today, okay? Now, I'm going to make some editorial comments. I can't read something without doing that. All right, so this is Dr. Tammy T. Webb. Dr. Tammy T. Webb was born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. Now, if you're from Maryland, raise your hand. Where she grew up in a warm and caring environment. Dr. Webb taught from a young age to serve God. After graduating from high school, Dr. Webb attended Compton State University in Baltimore, Maryland, where she earned a bachelor's degree in social work. Subsequently, Dr. Webb earned her master's degree in clinical social work from the Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio. Lastly, Dr. Webb earned a PhD in counselor education and supervision from Mississippi State University in Starkville, Mississippi. Currently, Dr. Webb is an associate professor in the Department of Counseling at North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. Can I get an Aggie pride? I knew it. Okay, so Dr. Webb has published and presented numerous scholarly papers in her professional discipline. Dr. Webb's a member of the American Counseling Association for North Carolina. She is the current president of the North Carolina Marriage and Family Association. In addition, Dr. Webb annually plans and implements North Carolina A&T State University's Spiritual and Social Justice Forum. Thank you very much. Now, with regard to ministry accomplishments, over the past 10 years, Dr. Webb has traveled to Haiti to engage in missionary work to help the poor and underprivileged men, women, and children find hope in what seems like a hopeless situation. Along the same lines, Dr. Webb has taught Sunday school. Anybody remember Sunday school? All right. Vocational Bible school. Anybody remember that? Okay. And planned and facilitated church community engagement activities such as Passion in Pink for breast cancer, Women in Red for women in the ministry, and the church-wide spiritual retreats at Lake Junaluska, North Carolina, Atlanta, Georgia, and Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Dr. Webb is married to her high school sweetheart, Reverend Dr. Daniel Webb, pastor of Greater First United Baptist Church in High Point, North Carolina. Out of their beautiful union, they have two children, Dominique Daniel Webb, Devin Danielle V. Webb. In her spiritual motivation daily, here's a verse that she likes, and you can say it with me, Proverbs 3:5-6. This is where she finds her hope. In all, I know y'all from St. Peter's. Thank you. Let's welcome Dr. Tammy T. Webb.
Good morning. This is a beautiful Sunday morning today. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Because I saw some really happy women down here doing that dance right there. So y'all keep doing that because dancing is therapeutic. It is really therapeutic. Now, first, let me start off by saying, giving honor and praise to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, who's the head of my life, who died on that rugged cross for our sins. And we ought to be just excited about what he did for us because we can take our burdens, our pains, and our concerns directly to him. Praising Bishop and First Lady, thank you so much for inviting me here, and thank you so much for saying that mental illness is something that we need to discuss in our church community. And I just thank your Pastor and First Lady for doing that. Give them a round of applause. because what I'm going to share with you today as believers, I want you to take it out and share it to the non-believers in our world today. I bring you greetings from Greater First United Baptist Church, where my pastor and husband is Reverend Dr. Daniel Webb. He had to step out because today is our Communion Sunday and it's our visitation day. So he extends his warm welcome, and he prayed that I will do well and that I will not humiliate myself or him. And I'm going to try not to do that. They gave me a cordless mic, and I like that because I'm going to walk back and forth across like, I like to move around, but I have to get the logistics out of the way first. I have to recognize the Pastor's Aid Ministry and our members from the Greater First United Baptist Church who are sitting back there who came and traveled with me. Can you all just stand up? Because that support is so important, and I just thank my church family, and Devin Danielle, my daughter, is here, and I thank her as well. And Deacon Gooden is our deacon, and he's back there. He drove the bus this morning. He got up this morning and cranked it up and got it warm for us to make it here. So I thank him, and another one of our deacons drove pastor here, and he had to leave, so I thank them as well. When I came into this house, this beautiful house this morning, I felt welcome. I was greeted with a smile, and people were just so pleasant. Y'all give yourselves a hand. I felt so good, I might leave my membership and come over here. But don't tell my members I said that. Don't tell them. Don't tell them. But everybody was welcome. And where's Joanne? Sister Joanne Burnett. She is so... Stand up. She communicated with me, talked to me, let me know where I needed to be. Thank you so much for the phone calls and informing me of where I needed to be. And last, I have to thank that Vivian Barnett. That Dr. Barnett is something else. Dr. Barnett didn't tell me the size of this church. Thank God she didn't, because I would not have come. I would have stayed right there at Greater First United Baptist Church. Dr. Barnett has a habit of calling me or emailing me. No. She emails me or texts me, Webb, I need you to go to a conference. I said, yeah, I can go to a conference. She said, okay, somebody's going to be calling you. And she said this in an email, or you're going to get an email. And she gave me the days of the conference. You probably don't remember this. You're going to remember shortly. So I said, okay, I can go. My schedule is free. I can just go to this conference. I get a phone call from this woman in D.C. asking me about the flight. And I said, flight? I thought the conference was in Raleigh. I said, well, where am I going? She said, Atlanta, Georgia. I had to put the phone on mute and say, that's Vivian Barnett. Because I wasn't planning to get on a plane and go to Atlanta, Georgia with students. But she had a grant and she needed someone to go. And she always has something that she asked me to go to or attend. And I do it, and it benefits me. Because being a tenured faculty at A&T, you're still expected to publish and present. And people like Vivian help me and mentor me to make it so that I'm successful. This presentation right here is going to count towards my end of the year evaluation next year. So I have one down and 4 more to go. But I thank you for that. But let me start off with a word of prayer. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for today. We thank you for assembling us together to talk about a sensitive matter such as mental health and mental illness. Lord, we ask that there will be something said, something shared, something discussed that we will be able to take out and spread that'll help someone, whether or not it's us as an individual, a family member, or a friend, Lord. Lord, we ask that you provide those who are suffering with mental illness with comfort, Lord. Provide them with comfort, provide their family members with comfort, Lord. Lord, continue to allow us to have an open mind and an open heart and an open spirit to do your will and your work and to upbuild your kingdom, Lord. And Lord, we ask that we continue to seek you in prayer and meditation as we move through this journey of life so that we'll be prepared to go and meet with you on the other side, Lord. We pray this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, I've been asked to talk about mental health and mental illness, which is a very close topic to my heart because I teach individuals at A&T how to be counselors, mental health counselors, school counselors, and rehab counselors. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to read a scripture, and I'm going to tie it into mental health. So I'm going to read from Daniel this morning. chapter 3, verses 19 through 25. And it's read, and let me read it. Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude towards them changed. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual and commanded some of his strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So these men, wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothes, were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. The king's command was so urgent, and the furnace was so hot that the flames of the fire killed the soldiers who took Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and those 3 men were firmly tied, fell into the blazing furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement and asked his advisors, "Weren't there 3 men that were tied up and thrown into the furnace, into the fire?" They replied, "Certainly, Majesty." He said, "Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, bound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods." Amen? Now, today I'm going to connect Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and the king to mental health and mental illness. I'm not a preacher. I'm not a pastor. I'm just a college professor, and I'm just a person who wants to advocate for mental health and mental illness. So today you won't get a sermon from me. You're going to get how I lecture to my class. So I didn't want you to come in thinking you were going to get a good lecture, because I don't lecture. I teach, and I love to teach. And as I go through the presentation, my teaching style is I love to tell stories so that you can get a visual of what I'm trying to depict and what I'm trying to say. Because oftentimes we have different styles of learning. We have some that are visual, and I apologize. Oh, y'all have me up there? Oh. Y'all, please shut those cameras off. Anyway, I'm sorry. But we have individuals who are visual learners. They learn from visuals, and typically I have a PowerPoint, but I'll talk about that later because I don't have my PowerPoint. Auditory learners, people who can hear things, and they can remember it, and they can write it down. Then we have people who are tactile, practice it. And some of you are practicing about mental health right now in your daily lives, not whether it's you or a family member or a friend. So that's the practice sense. So with that being said, that's going to be how I present this presentation. And I promise you that I won't have you here long, that I'm going to address the mental health and mental illness. I'm going to ask if there are any questions so that we can clarify some things. Now, typically, I know I haven't been given a long time for this presentation, but typically my teaching is 3 hours. At A&T, I teach from 6 to 9. It's really supposed to be 8:50, but you see how energized I am? I typically take my class to 9 o'clock, and they get so mad. I mean, they're like, this class is supposed to end at 8:50. She didn't give us a break. But I won't keep you long because, like my students, I teach on Thursday night, and I know that I'm competing with Scandal because they let me know they need to be out because they want to run home and watch Scandal because they don't have the VCR to record it or whatever it's called. So then they put me under pressure, and I'm trying to rush through my lecture. But today I don't have to rush through my lecture because I won't keep you here for 15 minutes, but I know that I'm under the same pressure because some of you are going to start thinking about your lunch or brunch. Some of you are going to think about where you're going to go to eat, and you're going to drift off, and I'm going to try to pull you back into my lecture. Some of you are going to think about the long line at the buffet that you're going to go to and eat. And if you're anything like my mama and my grandmama, you're thinking about that roast that you put in the oven this morning, you turned down the flame low and wrapped it up tight, and you put it in, and if I'm up here too long, it's going to get dried, and you're going to say, that woman kept us too long, my roast dried, and my chicken all dried up. But I promise you, I won't keep you long. That chicken or roast won't burn out. It's going to be okay. I promise you it's going to be okay. So with that being said, now I got to do all my introductions and the theatrics. Let me talk about mental health and mental illness. And because it's a serious topic. So what is mental health? Mental health basically is emotional, psychological, and your well-being in terms of how you deal with things emotionally and psychologically and your behavior. And that mental health deals with the mind and the mindset and what goes on in the mind and in the brain. It also deals with how well you handle stress and stress-related issues, the choices you make, the behaviors you engage in. All of that is dealing with mental health. Mental health is so important to our lives that from the day that you are born and you're conceived until late adulthood, mental health affects you. So we hear about infants and how they grow and how they develop and how they nurture. That's dealing with their mental health, their mental capacity. So think about it that way. So just like your physical health, when we start to talk about our physical health and our physical well-being, we talk about things internal and external, and how our organs function, like our liver and our tissues and our cells, and how they function. And if they're functioning correctly, then we have good health. But sometimes they malfunction or things happen, and we have conditions like heart conditions, and we have issues with diabetes, and we have issues with heart disease and cancer and things like that. Well, similar to that, mental illness is similar. If there is a condition or a breakdown or a malfunction, then we start to have mental illnesses or mental health diseases, as we would call it, or mental disorders. And that's okay, because a mental illness is our ability as individuals, how we function and how we relate to others. It's about if we have a mental illness, there's some type of distortion in the way we think, the way we feel, the way we behave in our moods. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Now, one of the issues that we have with mental health and mental illnesses is we have a lack of awareness. There's a stigma with mental illness in not just our community, but in our country as a whole. There is a stigma, and people don't like to talk about mental health and mental illnesses. We'll talk about our health issues, and we'll tell everybody what's going on in terms of our health. For an example, since March, I've been dealing with vertigo. I have a bad case of vertigo, and I've been dealing with it since March. I've been back and forth to the doctors. I was in good health up until March. For some reason in March, my blood pressure spiked up to stroke level, and I've been back and forth to the doctors since then. Just this past Wednesday, I was in the emergency room from 8 in the morning until 8 at night because of my blood pressure and the vertigo. That's why I don't have the PowerPoint right there. And the doctors are adjusting my medication. It's back and forth. She said, Tammy, I'm going to have to give you Valsartan. That's a blood pressure that's a medication for high blood pressure. And I'm like, okay. She said, just take it once in the morning. Okay, I'm going to take it once in the morning. Then I need you to come back. I went back. She said, oh, your blood pressure is still high. My blood pressure was 196 over 116. She said, that's high. So then she said, but then your heart rate is so low. Your heart rate is at 45. So my blood pressure is high, my heart rate is low. So she said, we're going to have to do some adjustment. So not only am I going to give you Valsartan in the morning, then I'm going to give you a fluid pill, then I got to give you something in the evening, because what I wanted to give you, I can't give you because it's going to drop your blood pressure your heart rate even lower. So I'm like, okay, this is going from a person who's never taken medication before to taking 3 medications. Then that can I say daggone? I'm sorry, Pastor. Then that vertigo kicked in again. See, that's that vertigo. I'm gonna blame all this on that blood pressure medicine. The vertigo kicked in this week really bad, and my husband thought I was having a stroke. I thought I was having a heart attack. I was in Moses Cone, and they said, well, it's the vertigo and something with your heart, so you got to see a cardiologist. Well, the doctor had already made a referral for me to see a cardiologist. So, in a nutshell, I'm fluctuating. I'm back and forth. I'm confused. I don't know what I'm doing. But you see how openly I'm talking to you about my health. But would I be able to talk to you this openly and you all being accepting if I had schizophrenia? How would you perceive me? How would you perceive the disorder? If I was up here and I said I had a mental illness, you would say, oh yeah, just how flighty I am, you would say that. But because I'm talking about my health and I have a PhD, you all are like, oh yeah, it's fine. But that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about mental health, and I want us to be open about mental health and mental illnesses. I don't want us to look at it as it's a death sentence or it's somebody who we need to. Remember back in the day, you would put that uncle back in that back room. I had an uncle. My grandmother had a big old house in Baltimore, and my uncle would be in that back room back there, and he was like, oh, don't go back there. And if my grandmother wasn't there, none of the grandchildren would go there because that uncle would be in that back room. And he had a mental illness. But today we shouldn't live like that. A person with a mental illness should not be in that back room. They should be right up here where I am talking about it, talking openly. So with that being said, let me move on because I think I don't have my timer on. Vivian, give me like this. No, give me like this when I got 10 minutes, okay? Because I'll take y'all to 3 hours. I promise you I will, but I won't today. So if you count on your pew, 1 out of 5 of you have a mental illness. So if you look at the shorter pews here, maybe about 10 people here or 8, about 1 of y'all have one, and the next pew, okay? So y'all count. So that's how common, see they counting. I see them counting over there. Now why is something, look, the woman over here at the end said, I don't have it. Y'all keep on counting. But I promise you, 1 in 5. Now listen up. Look, when I used to coach volleyball, when I coached volleyball and I didn't know what I was doing because I don't have a strong voice, I would say listen up. So I'm gonna tell y'all listen up. Listen up to this one. Listen closely to this one. Now 1 in 17 of you are living with a mental illness such as either bipolar, schizophrenia, or some type of anxiety disorder. So let's count from all over here. Now, if we start on this end, before we get down here, it's gonna be 3 of y'all that has some type of diagnosis. And if we keep on going, another 3. So you think about that. You think about a room this size, it's probably about maybe 60 people in this room alone with a mental illness. Now, whether or not it's diagnosed or undiagnosed, it's there. I felt like when I walked in here this morning, that anxiety, that mental illness anxiety, that was me. So I was that number 1 right there, because y'all just don't know. So let me break it down. And I'm gonna talk quickly about bipolar disorder. And the reason why I want to talk about bipolar disorder is because sometimes I get frustrated because it's a catch-all disorder. People throw that out there like it's nothing. Oh, she got bipolar, or she must got bipolar, or he got bipolar, just because they had an argument with somebody and they went off on them. We got to stop that. We got to know what these mental illnesses are so that we can help deal with them, because we don't say, oh, she got cancer because she just yelled at somebody, or oh, she got diabetes. We don't do that. So we have to take these mental illnesses very seriously. So I want you to think about that, because bipolar is a chronic mental illness, and it is a drastic shift in a person's behavior, and in the way that their mood changes, their mood swings, their ability to think clearly. A person with bipolar, they have extreme lows and extreme highs. They have what we consider as mania, meaning someone who hasn't done much around the house. Say, for example, if that bookcase has been leaning for about 4 or 5 years. When that mania sets in, not only do they fix the bookshelf, they line the books up perfectly. Everything in the house may be fixed. They may paint, they may cut the grass, they may trim edge with scissors and not edger, but that's because they're in that mania state. And some of you may have family members like that. 1 minute you can't get them to do anything, and the next minute they do everything, and then sometimes it can be very confusing, not only to that individual, but to that family member. And there are episodic episodes, because just like they have that mania, when they hit that wall, they hit it. Some of them go into a secluded environment. They may go upstairs, get in bed, and from the time they get off of work, all the shades are drawn, their covers are over their head, and they stay there until Monday. And some people with bipolar will stay there, and if it's so severe, they may not even get up to go to the restroom. So that's how severe this disorder can be and how it can affect an individual. When they get into that depressed mode and they feel helpless and hopeless and unwanted, they're not happy. That's serious. That is very serious. And they can go from the two total extremes. So that's something that we have to be mindful of. When I turn this way, can y'all still hear me? There he go with that camera again. Let me turn this way. So, and then people with bipolar can be extremely pleasant. I have a sister who's bipolar. My sister is one of those type of people who will give you the world during her manic phase. I know when she's manic because she calls me, hey, what you doing? And sometimes I'll call and say, hey, how you doing? All right. Okay, let me call you tomorrow. But then you know what I do? I call her tomorrow because she's in that depressed mode. She's in that downward spiral, and I need to make that connection with her. I need to make that contact with her. Sometimes it takes, I got to muster everything. I mean, when I go to press that last number for her phone number, I'm like, Lord, please help me. Hey, Leah, what you want? Oh, what you doing? Nothing. Okay, did you watch? And then I'll think of us, no, I ain't watching. I'm like, okay. Hang up, well, I'll talk to you later. Hang up, the next day, the same thing. Sometimes I feel like I can get under the desk when I'm talking to her. But I have to continue to talk to her because I need to make sure I'm assessing and make sure she's okay. So she has that mood swing. And sometimes she gets into an anger rage. Thank God she's in Baltimore and I'm here. She was thinking about moving here, and I told my husband, I said, Arizona is starting to sound real good. Arizona State Highway. But and then she gets into a rage. So, you know, I have an understanding of what she's going through when she's going through that severe downward spiral. And it happens to people, and she's going to be so upset that I mentioned her and her bipolar, so don't none of y'all tell her, okay? Nobody don't tell her. But let me take this back to Daniel, because I know that's where y'all want to go. Like, how did she tie Nebuchadnezzar, the king, with bipolar? So listen, if you still have your Bibles or anything, that first line, the king had become furious. I mean, he was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude changed. Now, what I want y'all to do is, before Wednesday, go back and read the entire book of Daniel, because you're going to see where King Nebuchadnezzar, his attitude changed. You can see when he was manic and he had delusions and things like that. And then you could see where he changed to that anger and that fear, that furiousness that he had. So according to Webster's dictionary, he was furious, but according to Webster's dictionary, furious means extremely angry, enraged, infuriated, irate, outraged, and fuming. But think about this. Earlier in chapter 3, in that verse, in that first verse, they talked about, and you can correlate the king with being manic, because he built this idol that he wanted them to worship, and it was they give the cubic feet, and it was made of gold, and you could just imagine how beautiful it was, and for him to make sure that the people had their instruments together, because every time when that music played, he wanted them to bow down and worship that God that he created. You got to be creative to do something like that. Just like that women's program that y'all had this weekend, that was creativity to put all that together. Somebody puts a weekend together with women dealing with rooms and activities and things like that. But you had one person who was probably manic, who wanted it all right, all together, and y'all gonna do what I say, and this is gonna be great. Oh, I'm sorry, First Lady, was that you? Look, she was manic, now she calm. Oh, yeah. So anyway, but for him to have had all of that done and structured in order, and then in a matter of, because it didn't say, it said in a matter of a moment, he became furious. He became so furious that he ordered Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to be thrown into the fire, the furnace. So he went from, yeah, y'all gonna worship my God, we're gonna have a good time, we're gonna praise him. What? Kill those people. Like they say in Mississippi, kill them dead. You're gonna kill them dead. So he had that mood change. And if you ever interact with someone who has bipolar, sometimes you'll see that mood change, and it's in their eyes. And you can see them thinking. You can walk into a room and you know, okay, this is gonna be one of those days. And you gotta be patient. You gotta go to God in prayer about it. You really do. You gotta ask God to guide your tongue so that you could work with them. But no matter what, at that moment, the king wanted those three thrown into that fiery furnace, because he ordered the furnace heated up, not one time, not two times, not three, not four, not five, not six, but seven. And seven represents, anybody know what seven represents? Completion. He wanted that task completed. He wanted them completed, and he wanted them gone. So 7 times the natural heat that furnace could hold, he wanted it cranked up. And he commanded them with an urgency, kill them dead. That's the correlation between people who are bipolar. Sometimes they can get violent. Not only do they get upset, but they can get so much in a rage that it's uncontrollable that they may get violent. So then the blaze was turned up. King Nebuchadnezzar, he said, put them in the fire. But not only did he want the three of them to go into the fire, do you know he took his strongest men? I'm like, what are you thinking? Your strongest soldiers? Don't you need them? Y'all always fighting over that land and territory over there. You know, you're never satisfied. Somebody is always trying to come over into the kingdom and take that land. But he didn't care. He didn't think rationally. And sometimes that's what happens if people who don't take their medication or they're undiagnosed. Okay, so those are the biblical connections. So that feeling, typically people with bipolar, that feelings of confusion. They can have feelings of confusion. They can have feelings of anger, being upset. They can worry a lot. It can be frightful to them. They can be scared and worried because their behavior they can't control. It's just something deep down within. Even with King Nebuchadnezzar and throwing the soldiers, not only was that affecting his military, but that may have affected the family members of those soldiers. So if you think deep about it, today, what a person with bipolar may do, what they do may affect their families. It affects their relationships. It affects their jobs. It affects their livelihood. And it's a unique experience to them because sometimes they can't control when they have those mood swings. Now, we do have people with seasonal disorders who I have a good friend of my family, and she's bipolar. And she's bipolar because every single summer she ends up in jail. And that we can see the onset. Around this time of year, she's not in jail right now. She's up in Baltimore. But she's getting ready to have her onset. And the onset is when her symptoms start to show. She stops calling us as much as she used to. She disengages with us. And the next thing you know, she has been out in the street fighting with someone, and she ends up in jail and needs bail money. So, of course, my mother in a couple months is going to call us up, call the family up and say, we're going to need some money. They always divide the bail times, how many family members who have decent jobs, and the attorney fee. So I'll be getting a phone call with my amount in a couple of months. So much for my good vacation this year, because it's going to go towards getting her bailed out and her attorney fees. But that's how serious it could be. And no matter how much we say, you got to get help, you got to get help. How can we help you? It's that mindset. And it's not the individual, it's the disorder, it's the disease. No matter how many doctors I'm going to for this blood pressure and bipolar, it's the disease that's making me like this. It's tearing up my blood pressure, and it's tearing up that vertigo. I was driving down 40, and I was riding on the ridges of the road before I found out it was vertigo. And I'm saying, why won't this car stay in the middle of the lane? I kept, you know how you drive on those ridges? And when my doctor said you got vertigo, I'm gonna call your husband. I'm like, what? So that's the same way. You have bipolar, you got to find out what works. I got some more time, Vivian? I got time because I got a lot right here, y'all. I'm trying to get through it. Warning signs. Let me give y'all some warning signs of bipolar so that you'll know, so that I'm educating you. Okay, so a person with bipolar, their eating habits may start to change. They may start overeating or they may not eat enough. Their sleep patterns start to change. Some people with bipolar can stay up 24 hours. I mean, they can stay up. They're in that room tinkering around with something, a project that they have not done, they can complete. Or they can have just the opposite, that low energy, feeling of numbness. They don't feel anything. Something can happen and they may sit there just focus and straight and not having an emotional response to something. They may feel sad, helpless, hopeless. Some people start drinking, smoking, using drugs to hide or to mask that disorder. And that's a problem in our community, and that's something I'm going to talk about a little bit later. And I talked about experiencing the mood swings. They may be in a loving, caring relationship, and the next thing you know, something has broken loose and they can't stand that person. They'll say, I hate him. If he come anywhere near me, I'm going to kill him. Take it seriously when they say that. Threatening to harm themselves or harm someone else. Those are signs right there. Constantly yelling or arguing or fighting. So those are some of the symptoms. There's a lot more. But let me move on to what I would say as some of the things that the literature has said that we can recommend for them, and then what I would recommend too. Seek professional help. I always recommend when I was providing counseling, I would always tell people, go see a physician first before you go see a psychiatrist or a counselor, because you need a physical exam to rule out anything. You may be irritable and upset because you may have hypoglycemia. You may be irritable and upset because maybe you have some other underlying medical condition. But rule out anything medical before we start looking into the behavior or the psychotic or the psychological. So always go medical first. Let me shift the subject and ride on my high horse for a little bit. It's the same with children. I told myself I was not going to jump off subject, but I have to jump off the subject. With our children, one of the things that irritates me the most is when we go, and the first thing we do is go to a pediatrician, and we let a pediatrician put our children on medication for attention deficit disorder. We have to really look into that. Now, some kids, they may need it, but anybody in this room who's over 50 did not take an antidepressant or antipsychotic when they went through school. They didn't. Pharmaceutical companies, it's $1 billion industry. They focus on the low income, minorities, and be careful, seniors, because now the baby boomers, they're focusing on y'all. You know why? Because it's a lot of y'all. It's a lot of y'all. I mean, and they counting them up. You know, how many were born during this war and how many are over 65 right now? What? So you have to really be cautious. But with our kids, I always tell people, go first and rule out anything in terms of hearing impairment, visual impairment. Are they sleeping at night? What are they watching before they go to sleep? Things like that. You know, look into it. If the teacher say they don't sit down and they're always up, then go in the classroom with them. I had a teacher who I debated on. She said, well, you come in and you sit down and you monitor this child. And the boy was. I mean, he was running around, messing with people, running around. And then, but I noticed one thing. When he would run around, he would always look at the board. He would mess with somebody, then he couldn't see. And that's what I asked. I said, did he have an eye test? She said, well, I don't know. He's supposed to have one. He never had an eye exam. He was visually impaired. He couldn't see that well. He couldn't see the blackboard. So they wanted to give him, for one, they wanted to do an IEP for him, an individual educational plan. You know they do with kids when they say they can't learn. It wasn't that he couldn't learn. He could not see. But nobody known that. And I just said that because he was getting on my nerves. Like, why won't this boy sit down? But then something caught me. Why he mess with somebody, come back, then go to his desk, and I'm like, sit down, okay, and I'm trying to sit with him, but he couldn't do it. And then he started asking me what certain things was, and I was like, well, you know, first I thought maybe he had a learning disability, but we need to rule out anything medically, because our children don't need to be drugged up at 6, 7, 8 years old. Because there's a correlation between these medications that we're given for attention deficit disorder and later in life, drug abuse. They're related. You start them off at 5, 6, 7 years old thinking they need something to control their behavior. When they get older, when they come to A&T, then they think they need some weed to calm them down. They don't want that really, nor any of that other stuff. They need some weed and some vodka, some gin. Oh, am I okay talking about that in church class? I'm sorry. Y'all know I work with college students. I'm sorry. I keep it real. They keep it real with me. You know, when somebody was like, Dr. Webb, I got to make these coins. I'm like, coins? What is, that's the new terminology for money. They got to make coins. So, but that's what they tell me they drink. You know, they tell me they partying it up, but they don't need it. Now, let me get back to you all, because I want to talk about some of y'all, because I've started to pick up on some things with some of my friends and my family members, and it's on the television. Everybody need wine when they come home to unwind, relax, chill. They're gonna drink that wine before they watch Scandal or Empire or the reality shows. I'm only gonna drink a quarter of a glass. Then next year, it's a half of a glass. Then 6 months later, it's 2 glasses. Then next thing you know, it's the bottle. Next thing you know, you chugging it in the house, coming in, taking your shoes off, chugging on that, going to sit down. You don't need, oh, can you hear me? You don't need that. I'm gonna have to leave those off because it's gonna take too much to get them back on. You don't need that wine. Let me tell you, unwind with some meditation. Learn some deep breathing skills, some deep breathing techniques. You know, just pray, Lord, calm my spirit, calm my nerves. You need that kind of calmness and not that wine, because that wine is starting to make our women turn into alcoholics. The alcoholic rates in women, especially women of color, is soaring. It's that wine. It's no longer to go into the club doing the gin and juice. Everybody drinking their own wine, having parties together, drinking wine. So be careful, be cautious of that. Now let me get back to bipolar disorder. I'm sorry, I digress. So seek professional help. People will need some mood stabilizers. I'm not going to talk against mood stabilizers because people do need them. If you have bipolar disorder, you're going to need a mood stabilizer to help stabilize your mood. And if you're seeing things, having visual hallucinations or delusions, you're going to need an antipsychotic. And some people don't like taking them, but if it's going to help you, if it's going to make your mind stabilize, then please take it. Educate yourself. If you hear of a family member has a specific disorder, now when my mama found out that I had high blood pressure, oh, what medication you taking? How often? What's the milligrams and all that? And I'm like, what? And she went and researched everything about high blood pressure, vertigo, and everything else. Had family members looking into it. Had my sister-in-law, who's a nurse, calling me up every day. How you feeling? I feel the same way I felt yesterday. I feel fine. But that's what, that's after my mother educated me. And everybody know, yeah, how high was your blood pressure? Now, me being the person I am, when they said, I knew the average blood pressure was 120 over 60. And when she said 80, okay, see, didn't know. And then when she said 196 over 116, I'm like, okay, I ain't thinking nothing of it. Mama was like, what? Girl, that was at stroke level. You could have died. You driving. I went right to my phone and was like, what's the average blood pressure? Then I started getting nervous. But I had to educate myself. And it's interesting. I don't eat pork. I don't eat meat. And I don't eat processed food a lot, but I have a family history. Bipolar the same way. Know your family history. Know if you have a family history of mental disorders in your family so that you can know to be prepared and know how to treat it, okay? So let me move on because I think I'm spending too much time right here. The next disorder that I want to talk about a little bit because it affects a lot of people. People being diagnosed with schizophrenia. That's the second disorder, and you hear people using that term out of order, and people joking about it. But it's interesting because oftentimes that's a disorder that affects people of color, and it could be generational. It could be if you had severe trauma to the head. Let me read what schizophrenia is. Is that where I was going? Okay, y'all got it. Okay. Let me get to schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is a serious mental illness which interferes with a person's ability to think clearly, to manage their emotions, and they may have delusions, or they may hear things. They may think that people are saying things about them that they haven't said. It's very severe for people. 1% of the population suffers from some form of schizophrenia. The average onset for men is 20, and for women, it's the late 30s. Now remember, the onset is 20 because if I have time, I'm going to tell you a story, but the onset is 20. Now let's get back to the king, because and now I'm going from chapter 3, verses 23 through 25. Now listen to this. The king leaped to his feet in amazement and asked his advisors, weren't there 3 men that were tied up and thrown into the fire? They replied, certainly, Majesty. He said, look, I see 4 men walking around the fire, unbound, unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of God. Now, Zacharias, what he saw, he thought he saw. What he thought he saw is what he saw. Now, people with schizophrenia who have delusions, what they saw is what they saw, is what they thought they saw that they saw. So to them, it's real. It's real to them. Whether or not you hear people with schizophrenia talking about bats flying. I remember one time I was doing an assessment, and you know how when you do psychiatric assessments, they put you in these small rooms. And I was in a room with a man who had schizophrenia, and then he was using drugs. And he kept darting. He kept saying, you see it? After a while, I started darting. And I'm like, what? But what he saw was real. And he kept saying, you better watch it. And I'm like, after a while, I'm telling you, I had the hardest time doing that assessment. But I had to validate it. I said, okay, I see it, but we're going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Take a deep breath. But I had to validate what he saw was true. So he was psychotic. And people who are psychotic, sometimes they see things. So the king may not have been psychotic back then. We just give it he may have had schizophrenia back then, but it wasn't schizophrenia. What he saw was what the Lord wanted him to see. But now we just put a fancy terminology to it. We call it schizophrenia. But we have to validate what a person sees if they have schizophrenia, because they may have thoughts that jump around. They may be paranoid, difficulty concentrating. People with schizophrenia may become depressed, anxious, suspicious of others, those hallucinations, those delusions, disorganized speech, and their topics may be erratic, and then they may have suicidal and homicidal ideations. And suicidal and homicidal ideations are either them thinking about killing themselves or killing someone else. And if someone has those type of ideations, it's important that you seek help immediately. And if people, now I'm gonna drift off a little bit. If you ever talk to somebody and you think that they're suicidal or homicidal, it's okay to say, are you thinking about killing yourself? That is okay. What's not okay is if you walk away and not ask them that, because you want to know if they are. No, you're not professionals, but at least ask. You keep talking about dying. Are you thinking about killing yourself? And if they say yes, then find professional help. Seek help for them. You can always call 911, take them to the nearest emergency room so that they can get a psychological evaluation. If they start talking about killing someone else, then find out who, and then also take them to the emergency room, because they may need psychological help. And that's if they're delusional. Now, if it's that woman mad at that man who done cheated on her, and she talking about killing somebody, then you say, sister, calm down, he wasn't worth it anyway. You know? So let's go that way with that. Pastor, am I okay? Was I okay saying that? I'm okay? I'm sorry. I keep thinking I'm at A&T. Y'all, I say some stuff in my class because I got to keep it real with my students, you know, so that they don't sit up there all uptight being counselors. I'm like, loosen up, be for real. So the king, when he asked his advisors and everything, and he said what he saw, we don't know if they saw it or not. The Bible didn't say that, but we know what he saw. And he should have saw it because he wasn't right at the time. So let me get back to schizophrenia also. When people with schizophrenia, it's typically, Vivian, how much time I have? Oh, shoot, I didn't even get to all my other stuff. Okay, let me go through quickly. Behaviors, bizarre behaviors, unusual speech patterns, trouble making decisions. Oh, should I do this? Should I do that? Insomnia, up all night long. That uncle of mine in that back room banging and hammering. I'm like, man, I'm scared. You know, she's like, oh, he gonna bang all night long. Get used to it, because you're gonna be here for a week. Because my mama and daddy used to need a vacation. They would send us all to my grandma. And I was so scared of my uncle, I used to sleep with my Nana. And she was a big woman. And in the wintertime, oh, it wasn't nothing better than sleeping under that big woman. Oh, I just loved it. So let me go stay with Nana. So anyway, bless her heart. She resting in peace now. People with schizophrenia, they may become withdrawal from things that they used to do, activities. If you have church members who you haven't seen in a while, you need to contact them. Not that they have schizophrenia, but we need to contact one another, make sure they're doing okay. Hey, sister, I just called to check on you. Haven't seen you in service. Or, hey, brother, man, you know, where you been? Haven't seen you. We're going to have a good service. Women's encounter, oh, that was a blessed time. Next year, y'all come. Oh, First Lady, make sure you let me know about the women's encounter. One of y'all, make sure y'all let me know about the women's encounter so we can come next year, okay? Yeah. I want Greater First United to come next year, okay? So anyway, those thoughts and emotions are all over the place. Now, oftentimes people with schizophrenia, sometimes they tend to, because they hear the voices and they see things and it tends to be so overwhelming, they turn to drugs. They really do. And sometimes they think that the drugs help with the voices. And some people, they say it does. And I'm talking about illegal drugs. I'm not talking about the prescription drugs that we so desperately want them to take. But they tend to turn to your crack, your heroin, especially now with your heroin, because it makes them down. It puts them in that utopia state where they're feeling good. But those voices are still going to be there. They may not be as intense. And some of them, they are as intense. But we have to make sure they take their psychotropic medications. And we have to make sure that we continue to say, are you taking your medications to help them out? Now, I'm not gonna go through everything that I'm gonna go through, but let me talk about barriers to mental health, because I had a lot of stuff. Let me talk about barriers to mental health. I had some other topics. I wanted to talk about anxiety and give you some scriptures, but I have it in a PowerPoint, and I'll send that PowerPoint to someone, and you all can get that via PowerPoint, because I had a PowerPoint finished. But barriers to mental health, these are the things, even me as a professional and my students, we find is so difficult, is to find adequate help for people with mental disorders. But we have to make sure that we're proactive and that we're activists for mental health. So one of the barriers is the lack of information regarding mental illness. I commend this church for allowing me to come and share my knowledge with you all on mental health and mental illnesses. I only get to share it to my students. Now I have started to shift my line of research to spirituality and mental health because it's such a needed topic. So now this is going to be my new career path where I want to start doing speaking engagements, and you all are my first testers on it. So, am I doing good? Y'all just being kind. Pastor, you got a good congregation. They just being kind and polite. Love it, love it, love it, love it. There's a lack of resources in terms of mental health and mental illnesses. Lack of culturally competent counselors. A&T and Winston-Salem State, I commend those programs because we are producing culturally competent counselors. We are one of the only two universities in the system that produces the amount of minorities, meaning African Americans and Latinos, and now the Asian population are seeing a need for mental health counselors, but we're still outnumbered, and oftentimes minority want to see a professional that looks like them who understands their plight. So we have to continue to push people to go into the counseling profession. You're not going to be rich, you're not going to make a lot of money, but if you want to help people, that's a profession that you want to go into. The stigma associated with mental health, that's a problem right here. We have this stigma. The lack of mental health awareness and knowledge. Now, and the lack of mental health service providers. Let me go back, and then I'm going to finish with this story. When I said the onset of schizophrenia starts at age 20, back when I was finishing up my master's degree at The Ohio State University, I had the privilege of being hired at the Orient Reception Correctional Center, a maximum security prison for men in Orient, Ohio. And I call it a privilege because a group of inmates in Ohio and at the same time in California, they sued the state because they were mentally ill and they weren't getting treatment. They were being locked in prison cells and they were not getting mental health treatment. So both of the lawsuits came together at a federal level and the inmates won the lawsuit. Because you know, with deinstitutionalization in the 70s, people who are mentally ill, they don't go to mental health treatment facilities anymore. You know where they go? They go to prison. So you have somebody who's mentally ill with a hardcore criminal. So anyway, the age of 20, I had the privilege of doing a therapeutic group with male inmates. And they would talk about how they ended up where they ended up. But there was this one guy who always looked mad, and he always looked mean, and he always just had this stern look on his face. And he scared me half to death whenever I went to do group therapy. And because of my stature and everything, most of the time it was one guard on the unit. But when I came on the unit, it had to be 3. They wanted to make sure that I was safe. And then plus I was coming from the university. The best thing about that job was I couldn't get fired. I loved it. I would fuss with the warden about an iron for the inmates. And he would say one day, he said, who are you? I said, I'm Tammy Webb. I'm from the Dunn versus Gornevich case. He said, okay, get him 2 irons on that unit. He would give me whatever, and I would just walk out, oh, I got it. But anyway, the age of 20, this man who sat there sternly and upset all the time, he was an excellent artist. He could draw. He probably could draw all of you just like how you are in this scene because that's how his mind worked. But at the age of 20, he graduated from high school early. He graduated probably about 16 or 17. He got a full ride scholarship to The Ohio State University in industrial engineering. His parents started noticing something different about him when he was 19. And they couldn't put their hand on it. They said, he keeps saying that we're in his room and we're taking things. And they got him to see a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist diagnosed him with schizophrenia and said, we're going to make a referral. Well, this guy went to college. His sophomore year, his behavior kept getting more irate and anger and uncontrollable rage, and he would break things. And he kept saying his roommate was in his room taking his stuff, and one day he and the roommate got into an argument, and he killed his roommate. The voices in his head were telling him that his roommate was taking his stuff and saying things about him. So he killed him. He's serving a life sentence at that facility. And I tell this story if you're ever on the campus of North Carolina A&T and you stop by my office to see me. I have a picture, and the picture is of a little boy who is holding on to like a monkey bar. Remember, we used to call them monkey bars back in the day, some type of playground apparatus. And at the bottom it said, I had a dream too. And what's so interesting, he was able to process that with me that day. The boy who was looking through the monkey bars was him. And his dream was to make playground equipment for children. That was his dream. But that schizophrenia, because the lack of mental health services, the psychiatrist who diagnosed him did not do a follow-up, and his parents didn't know anything about the disorder. So take these disorders very seriously. This man could have been our next designer of an amusement park or something, but he's in the Orient Correctional Reception Center where he's going to die there. So I say that to you to let you know that mental health is important. We have to do something about it. We have to come together as a community, and we have to advocate for it. Now they have cut the number of days that you can see a provider if you have a mental illness. We need to go to our capitals and advocate for mental health and mental health treatment and mental health services. And then we have to make sure that we are supportive of our family members and friends who need the support. With that being said, let me close in prayer. Can we pray? Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for today. We thank you for this opportunity for allowing me to share about mental health and mental illnesses, Lord. Lord, I pray that I said something today that will be shared with this congregation, that will be shared with their families, that will be shared with their community, Lord. Lord, I ask that you continue to bless those who have been diagnosed with mental illnesses and give them comfort, Lord. Provide them with the comfort that they need. Provide us with the diligency to work with them, the endurance to be there with them, Lord. And Lord, continue to guide us together, Lord. We pray this prayer in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you all. Oh, any questions? I know y'all getting ready to do communion or anything. Any questions? Oh, y'all standing up there waiting for me to go? Okay. Do I need to get my shoes? Yeah, you take your shoes too.